Guys, I have something to confess. This is a secret I thought I'd take to the grave, but I finally feel comfortable sharing it. This is a safe space, after all. I collect Sonic the Hedgehog toys. I know, this probably comes as a shock to you all, but it gets worse. Not only do I collect Sonic toys, but I'm actually a fan of Toy Island. Doesn't anyone know what Toy Island is? No one at all. Okay, that confession suddenly feels pointless. Anyway, I'll simply have to educate you fine folk on the strange history of Sonic's partnership with the now defunct Toy Island. Take a seat and get comfy with a big cup of Chaos Cola, because this'll be a long one. If you're a Sonic fan under the age of old, you probably have no clue what Toy Island was and what they produced for the Sonic franchise. And I honestly don't blame you. They aren't as iconic as Jazzwares, or as legendary as what Jax has now become, or even as easily recognisable as Resource, as inaccurate as their figures can be. Toy Island has always been more of the middle child of the Master Toy partners, and there's definitely good reasons. Inaccurate moulds, strange releases, and a whole bunch of pointless variants, just to name a few. But despite that, I love Toy Island. I think their figures have a unique charm to them, which no other Sonic toy line has really captured. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the year 1999, when Sonic Adventure released outside of Japan. Sega saw the success of the game and decided they wanted toys made, and so they went to two companies to manufacture them. Resource was the first to have a release, with a wave of 4 figures in a 4-inch scale releasing that same year, but I'll save those for a future video specifically on Resource. Toy Island was also asked to make some figures for Sonic Adventure, however their first release wasn't until the next year, with a wave of 5-inch figures consisting of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Big, and Eggman. These figures were not well received, especially in comparison to the far more favoured Resource figures, and to an extent, I get it. While both sets have their inconsistencies, with neither company really capturing how they looked in-game, objectively speaking, Resource did a lot better of a job than Toy Island. After all, Toy Island Tails looks like this. But despite that, I've always been more partial to Toy Island ever since I found out about both of these lines. I just find their inaccurate off-model figures so much more charming. Except Tails. No one liked their Tails. Anyway, back to the history lesson. Each of their figures came with a set of accessories, with every single one coming with 2 rings and 2 Chaos Emeralds each, and at least one other unique accessory. For Sonic, it was a snowboard, Tails had a chow, and apparently his tails were also considered an accessory. Knuckles had a clear blue ring holder, Big came with a fishing rod and Froggy, and Eggman came with Kiki, as well as its detachable tail, just like Tails, and Kiki's bomb. It's pretty cool that some of these figures essentially came with a bonus figure, something even Jax has just adopted for the 35th anniversary. Now, even on the main figures, the articulation is nothing to write home about, with each figure, aside from Eggman, having 5, the head, the arms and legs, and Eggman having 6, being his arms, legs and ankles, with sadly no head articulation. Even Kiki and Froggy both have 4 points of articulation each. That's one thing Toy Island has over Jax, a Froggy that's articulated. And also not just a lump of plastic shit. Good job, Toy Island. Strangely, they all had magnets in their feet, and I don't really get why. With Sonic, it's so the snowboard can attach as it also has magnets in it, but none of the other figures needed them, unless, of course, you want Eggman on the board instead. Now, they didn't just make 5-inch figures, they also made a line of 10-inch talking figures of Sonic, Tails and Knuckles. Sonic actually got 2 releases, with the second completely resculpting his head. Fun fact, I only own the second revision, because I've never found the first for a price that didn't make me want to top myself. Each figure came with a base, and had 2 voice lines taken from Sonic Adventure, which I'll show now if I can be bothered to get footage. Nothing? Okay, moving on. They didn't stop at those. There's also a set of 3-inch bendy figures that were available individually. They featured Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Big, and Dr. Robotnik. A 4-pack was available which included Sonic, Tails, Knuckles and Amy, and a second 4-pack of Sonic, Dr. Robotnik, E102 Gamma and Big the Cat was advertised, as well as an individual release of 102 Gamma, but both were never released. I find that disappointing as Gamma has very little merch as is, and even less at the time with only one figure made by Resaurus. They also made some stationery, but I don't care enough about it, so I'm just going to read straight from the wiki. Some stationery supplies were available with the appearance of characters from the game, such as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles and Chow as 3D erasers, and Knuckles as a pencil sharpener. The pencil sharpener was a part of a set including a stapler, tape dispenser and tape measure, but only the pencil sharpener was released, despite the back of the card depicting the full set. They also had some crappy inflatable stuff, such as bot bags and chairs, but who actually cares about these? The real meat and potatoes started with... And what a strong start they had with re-releases. Great. Well, at least they're not just straight re-releases, they all lost most of their accessories. So I hope you didn't want another chance to get Kiki, the Chow, or even something as minute as rings. The only character to have most of their accessories remain intact is Big, who only lost the rings. Sonic and Knuckles also both had their heads resculpted, and while I think Knuckles is undeniably an improvement, Sonic is a downgrade, in my opinion. It's hard to explain why, but I just really prefer the way the first head design looks, even if objectively it's less on model. Although I'd argue the second one is almost as bad, making it nearly obsolete. This is where the figures became more widely available outside of the US, with the figures at some point being released in Japan by Kid Galaxy, and later distributed by Fever in the United Kingdom, Grand Toys in Canada, and MacDo in Italy. It is also with a great sadness to announce that all of the figures did lose the magnets in their feet. Truly a dark day for Toy Island fans across the globe. And, of course, these figures also had another set of re-releases not long after. This time each character came with a small keychain of themselves, except Dr. Eggman, who came with cheese. Big the Cat, sadly, no longer came with Froggy. Eventually, with the second wave, named Series 2 of the Sonic X figures, we got some notable improvements with the sculpts of them. Well, mostly. This wave features a brand new Sonic, which is definitely an improvement despite looking stupid outside of one singular angle. Their first ever Shadow figure, who's fine and in line with the rest of Toy Island stuff, but nothing really to write home about, even at the time, compared to the Joyride figure. We also got the first ever figure of Cream, Rouge and Chris Thorndyke. They're all nice looking, except for Chris, who looks strangely fat and mildly concerned? What is that expression even meant to be? Plus he scales terribly, even for this wave. The figures have never scaled all that well next to Eggman, but Chris is basically the exact same height. Is Toy Island's Eggman interpretation just that he's really short? Or is Chris, along with Sonic & Co., just freakishly tall? And no, I am not overthinking children's action figures from over 20 years ago. I'm perfectly normal. This is normal. You're the weird one. Anyway, in terms of accessories, they all came with 2 emeralds, with Cream getting a bonus accessory with a figure of Cream the Chow. It's just a repaint of the original Chow with a red bow tie. And next up, we have the Megabot series, something that has technically never existed in any of the games, TV shows, or even comics. So this is something entirely original, despite being still packaged as Sonic X merchandise. The Megabot was intended to appear in Sonic X, but was cut from the show and only appeared in the original pilot. The Megabot series is a set of 6 figures shown on screen, and 5 of which come with a piece of the Megabot's body. When the 5 figures are collected, they can assemble the pieces and have a completed Megabot figure. The 6th figure in this series is a second Sonic with a different pose, which comes with a Gunnerbot and a big spring-loaded X from the show's logo. If you didn't already notice, the figures were based off of certain artwork made for the show. The figures of the line were later re-released, having updated and improved sculpts, and eventually they even replaced Amy with yet another Sonic. And this time he didn't have a new pose, but did come with Amy's Megabot part. This could be due to the incorrect colour of her arms on both releases. Some sources, also known as Sonic Gear, actually claim that the Megabot wave released shortly before the initial Sonic X line. but regardless of that, they both released around the same time, alongside the Space Fighters line, which I'll get onto soon. But for now, here's where things get strange. As mentioned, a lot of the figures were re-released with improved sculpts. That actually meant making Knuckles unnecessarily taller, randomly swapping Sonic's head for a worse one, and altering Amy's face sculpt, which is honestly the only actual improvement, in my opinion. Now that might not sound weird, because it isn't, but what is weird is the inconsistency with specifically Sonic. Sonic was given two different poses between his two figures, one which I and my best friend affectionately call Disco Dancing Sonic, who usually looks like this, with the running Sonic of the Wave sharing the same head. But what's weird is they also both got the Space Fighter's head at random points in production, which was not designed for these figures at all, and honestly look pretty stupid. Another fun fact, we never got Disco Dancing Sonic in the UK, and we only got the release of Running Sonic with the wrong head. Thanks, Fever. There is also a variant of the Disco Dancing Sonic with an abnormally long neck, but this could easily just be a production error. Now, it wasn't just Sonic that got a new head mid-production, Shadow got one too. I'll read a short extract from Sonic Gear as they already explained it near perfectly.
This figure is sure to make some people mad. Why? Because it's better than what the USA got. This is a real Megabot Shadow, but look at his face. It's so much better than the USA one, so why didn't they pick this one? That is a mystery to solve. No round mouth here, just the expected line/frown thing which he needs. This Shadow is from Europe and Canada, and was released by another company, not Toy Island, there. Why did they make a better head and then not let the USA have it? Why make two heads at all?
There is also a release of Disco Dancing Sonic with the wrong accessories. Is this a mistake or a re-release? We'll probably never know. Also, what is it with this figure and inconsistent releases? I've never seen a figure this inconsistent before. In 2015, yet another variant of this bloody figure was found on eBay, with a red and yellow version of the Megabot and a pearlescent version of Sonic to boot. One piece of speculation on Sonic Gear says,
"This was a chase figure, a 1 per carton variant special figure meant to entice collectors. This was meant to be a variant for a Megabot re-release planned if the first Megabot release did well. Makes sense because Megabot 1 did okay, but they loved the idea of sparkly things and made Metal Force figures later. Look on Prototype 1 of Sonic Gear, and you'll see the gold Megabot which does exist, but was photographed at a toy fair and thus was never likely actually packaged and sold, unlike this one."
Speculation 1 contributed by Sonic the Hedgehog 9908. I'm realising I haven't said anything about what I think about the Megabot. It's fine, it's quite tall, and it looks okay. I don't really care for it. Finally, we can move on to the Space Fighters line, and as much as I'd love to give all the ins and outs of all these figures, I really don't want to. I don't care for the Space Fighters figures, okay? They do nothing for me, aren't based on anything at all, at least the Megabot was in the original Sonic X pilot, and are just ugly. All that needs to be noted is that this is where that other Sonic head comes from, and Shadow was revised in the middle of the line. Most of them just take a pre-existing figure and add some ugly, bulky armour. If I wasn't trying to get a full Toy Island collection, I'd skip these, and the same goes for the Metal Force line. And why is that? They're the exact same figures with missing helmets and slight colour tweaks. How exciting. You know, for someone who started this saying I really liked Toy Island and found them underrated, I'm realising I really don't like Toy Island. Thank God we're nearly done. What's next? Okay, I can work with this. Jazzwares fans, how many of you know that the Superposers, alongside other early Jazzwares stuff, were actually originally Toy Island sculpts? Oh. Well, just pretend you didn't, okay? If you don't know what a Superposer is, 2 6-inch action figures of Sonic and Shadow were released, each having 25 points of articulation. This made them the most articulated Sonic figures by Toy Island, and the most articulated Sonic action figures to date. Yes, even more than the movie 3 figures. Tails and Knuckles were planned for this line, as seen in prototype pictures of all 4 characters, but only in Sonic and Shadow made it to final production. At least until Jazzwares got the license, but this is a Toy Island video. Initial releases of the Sonic and Shadow figures had their eyes angled, but later releases fixed this issue. I actually own the Jazzwares releases of Sonic and Shadow, but they live amongst my other Toy Island stuff. since the differences from Toy Island's second release and Jazzwares releases aren't all that dissimilar. They're actually the only Jazzwares figures I own aside from a 3-inch modern Sonic, because I think Jazzwares figures are ugly. We've now reached the less exciting stuff, so let's just do a quick fire round of everything else they released until we reach anything of note. The 10-inch figures were re-released for X and no longer spoke unless you live in the UK, like me, in which case they were swapped for Sonic X voice lines. All of the bendable figures got single releases, aside from Gold Sonic, who I don't think I even mentioned, and Shadow was added as a figure that you could obtain. They also had some 4-packs. There was a 5-pack of the keychain figures without the chains, as well as a Chow re-release, which they incorrectly label as cheese. Fun fact about this item, I wrote the section about it on the fandom wiki. And they also released a couple more bot bags. What a way to finish Toy Island. Except, not really. Toy Island had one last trick up their sleeve to go out with a, well, not a bang per se, but less of a whimper. To celebrate Sonic's 15th anniversary and inadvertently marking their final year working with Sega to produce serviceable action figures for the Sonic brand, they made a commemorative statue featuring Sonic in a cool pose from some old stock art. The statue was 7 inches in height, made of resin, and limited edition as only 2,500 were made. It also came with a certificate of authenticity that included which number it was too. I really hope I can own this one day, as it's by far the best thing Toy Island ever produced, and is generally a really nice, well-made statue. Here's my current Toy Island collection, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with it, although I do intend to keep collecting, just slowly. I don't want to go bankrupt from cheap plastic from the early 2000s. Anyway, if you've stayed this far, I thank you deeply for listening to the frankly stupidly complicated history of this godforsaken toy company. This video was a joy to make, and I have plenty more videos like this planned for the next year. After all, I'm on the road to 700 subscribers right now, and it probably won't be long until the next milestone. I really cannot believe how much my channel grew in just over a year. I'd never even hit 100 followers on anything before I decided to start talking about my passion for a blue rat. And it still baffles me that so many of you want to hear me do exactly that, but I really appreciate it. I feel like I've done one of these in every one of my recent videos, but I really mean it, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. If you enjoyed the video, do feel free to leave a like and a nice comment. I do try to reply to everyone, and feel free to share it with a friend. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can even subscribe. No pressure though, the enjoyment of my content is never transactional. You can enjoy it without feeling pressured to subscribe. I hear there's also a new hype feature for small channels if you're watching on mobile, so maybe give that a press, if not just to try it out. One last thing, and I really don't like to promote stuff, but if you do play Sonic Rumble, you can enter my code in the store and support me directly. I don't currently make anything off of my content, and it's purely for fun, but the option is there. And as always, thank you again for watching, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Goodbye, Toy Island. Your legacy will be forever cherished by at least a few of us. Except for space fighters. Fuck space fighters.